Welcome to The Truth in His Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thanks for listening, and I invite you to share, comment, and review this podcast on your favorite platform. Today, I have the privilege of having a conversation with an artist, educator, actor, and the senior education specialist at the Port Discovery Children's Museum. Please welcome Derek Cooper. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
So, how are you today? We're here. It's a Friday, a little rainy.
It's things are going good. It's been a busy week for me. I won't lie. Between getting ready at the museum for the summer season, and I'm also acting in another side show just on my own. So that opens next weekend. So it's like a lot is happening, but it's good though. It's good.
I dig it. So as we start off here, could you give us those vital stats? Because, I gave that cut and paste, that copy and paste situation on what your background looks like. And literally it came from a press release. So give us those vital stats, like where'd you grow up and when did you first realize you wanted to pursue work that has creativity as an important factor to it?
So I am definitely born and raised in Maryland. I grew up on the Alameda section. So like kind of that city county, close to Towson, close to kind of everything-ish area. And so I lived there until I was about 16. And then my family and I, we moved up to Aberdeen in Harford County. Mm-hmm. And then besides college, I went to college in Virginia. I've been in Maryland and the city ever since. Right now I'm currently living in Baltimore County again. And, I've always been somebody who's been interested in art and creativity, even when I was really young. When people ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I want to be a cartoonist. I want to work for Disney World. So, that was always somewhere within me. And I've always kind of been drawn to art in different varieties, whether it was visual art and performing arts a lot later. But I think for me, really, when I realized I really wanted to work in a creative field, especially that creativity and education field, was definitely coming out of college. Sure. I'd always just stumbled into tutoring and education-esque jobs, just accidentally. Although one of my professors was like, you actually would be really good in education. I was like, I don't know about all that. But, lo and behold, here's where I am. But I think, when I came right out of college, looking kind of for both, work that pays, but also just like, theater work just on my own. Yeah. Some of the first gigs that I got were children's theater. And that was a medium I hadn't ever worked in. And it just working with the people that I work with, I definitely found a love for it. Just seeing the audiences, how they responded and being able to see the magic happens. And I think that just kind of kept me on this path where now with all the opportunities I've been able to do, it's definitely something that I'm all for the cause. I'm down for it. This is kind of definitely the field that I want to continue working on for the rest of my working career.
Love to hear it. And, as a person that grew up over there in that same area off of the Alameda, there were some a lot of random trips of just wasting time going over there to what is old Stop, Shop, and Save and things of that nature. Yeah.
Yes.
Always
the bars,
over there.
Like all of that. And like the Senator. Like it's like I haven't been to the Senator in a long time, but I remember I saw, I think, Shrek at the Senator, and like there's a couple like seminal movies over there. I was like, I remember like being there. It was like that was a big deal. But it's a nice area. Like I really, it was even when I was trying to move back into the city, I was like, that's an area I wouldn't mind moving back to. So I really have a lot of fond memories there. Yeah,
same. And just kind of being over there and being there while I was in high school. I went to city, and going through that stage where you're developing who you are, you're kind of just out there and you're exploring. And I just remember over there with like Belvedere, you'd see like Lance Riddick over there jogging. I was like, you live over here? You're on a wire. How you here? You're a real person? So it's a thing. It's a thing. So you're at Port Discovery as one of the is the day job, right? And still doing all of your as we all do, as we're out there, we're doing our creative thing. We're finding ways to kind of make some of the day job stuff kind of mesh really either super closely, or you get something from it that really serves that creative stuff. So can you tell me about the mission of Port Discovery Children's Museum, and what about that mission resonated with you?
So Port Discovery's mission is all about purposeful play and it's using that interactive, purposeful play to inspire and teach children. And we do it through a lot of different methods, through our exhibits that's actually in the building when you come visit the actual museum, to the programs, the activities and performances that we offer, and then even in our other community initiatives. A lot of partners with other organizations taking either programs or experiences out to a lot of different areas. And we've been developing a lot of really interesting partnerships with, like, for example, Center for Urban Families. We've been starting initiatives about, bringing fathers and giving them opportunities like to play with their kids. We do a lot of work with some hospitals with teaching, mothers about some early childhood kind of programs connected to another program that not ours, but we are a partner with. So it's a lot of different methods, but a lot of it is all about specifically kids, but also, kids, adults, parents, even teachers, because that's also important. They're an important part of kids' life, and just showing everybody how you can use play. Play isn't frivolous. Play is important for kids. Play is how kids learn, and you can use that in a creative and directed way to really help improve and expand a child's development, especially during those crucial early childhood years.
Yeah, and I noticed the alliteration there, purposeful play. I like that. So I heard through the grapevine that your story times, music times, and theater programs with Port Discovery are lively, imaginative, and fun, and always a fan favorite. So that's the feedback that you're getting, obviously. I would imagine you're hearing that. What are some of the things you're hearing?
Well, whoever said that, I thank them very, very from the bottom of my heart. Because, as an artist and creative, a lot of us are kind of very critical about our work. So we're always like, oh, this didn't feel right. I don't know how this is working. But no, I've been very fortunate just to have the opportunity to be able to create just original stuff at the museum, because when I initially started, and it will actually be 10 years this coming August that I've been at the museum. Yeah, I started as the title has changed a lot, but the floor staff that most of the guests interact with on the weekdays and weekends. I started as that, part-time, doing a lot of different stuff, but then eventually I became a supervisor in that department, guest services, and then eventually there were, some people who worked, full-time. It's like, you'd be really good in education. I was like, okay. And that was around the time where I was like, I'm almost off of my parents' health insurance. I'm looking for full-time work. So I was it lined up really nicely. And then I've been in the education department ever since. And even then, when I started in education, I wasn't initially doing performing arts work. It was very outreach, presenting programs that were already developed, which I loved. And I was able to, go around the state and go to different Judy centers and daycares and do all of that stuff. And that was amazing. And I got the opportunity to slowly create my own work and develop my own kind of crazy, wacky ideas. And I think that's one of the things that I know a lot of people who have kind of come and gone through Port Discovery have always appreciated that they kind of had the creative freedom to maybe try some programs, try some avenues that maybe in certain, especially public schools, but even in other different educational environments, they might not have had the opportunity to do, or it might have seemed a little too, weird or abstract, or I don't know if we're going to try this, but for the most part, Port Discovery's been really open and welcoming, and me throwing out something crazy and seeing if it sticks. And I'm happy that, I've been able to, meet a lot of families who have really responded positively to the work. There were families and that have come and gone who remember me, or oh, Mr. Derrick. Actually, a couple, I think it was maybe even last month, there used to be a group of moms who would come regularly for one of our early childhood programs I would run, called Mother Goose on the Loose. And it was designed by Dr. Betsy Diamont Cohen. And so it uses kind of nursery, traditional Mother Goose nursery rhymes, but other songs. And it's a very early literacy program. So it's kind of using that. And it's designed where the parents do it with the kids. So it's doing a lot of that classic, book reading, rhymes, singing, playing with instruments, but it's all kind of giving those early developmental tips. You don't have to be this incredible teacher or this performer. You can just do these simple things, and doing it, over and over, you get this, they start to develop those skills in a wide variety of areas. And being a performer, I put a little, extra
I would
flavor
imagine.
on it, a little theatrical flavor on it. But it was nice. Like a lot of the mothers, like and their kids, like really responded to it. So there was one mom. She ended up moving to New York, and she just was in the area when I was working, and she was like, "Oh, Mr. Derek, it's so good to see you." And I remember her oldest son was, I don't even think he was 1 when he first started coming to the museum, and now he's 7. And she was like 2 additional kids, and they like remembered me. And she's like, "Yeah, I'm still in contact with all the mothers. We still, talk. And, I've always appreciated, the story times that you did and the programs you did." And, it's one of those things where, people don't lie, so it's like that. It's not like they were being paid or like a plant or somebody. So for them to be able to say that I like genuinely like made an impact on them and their kids is something that I will always cherish and I'm always appreciative of.
That's great to hear. It's important to, like you were touching on earlier, you're creative. We're sensitive about our S, as it were. And when we get that feedback, because sometimes you do something you're not sure, you might go off of a clap, you might go off of a snap, whatever. You go off of something, but when you don't get something or you get just that negative vibe, you're like, oh, all right, what am I supposed to do? I think it's good, but I'm not sure. And so it's good to hear that sort of feedback that, no, this stuck. And one of the things that I was doing today was just, asking people who follow me and who like the podcast, what is the first word that comes to mind when you think of this podcast, and hearing like some cool things and not soliciting it, but really wanting to get a temperature and feedback and engagement, because you put something out there and you're like, I did my job. I'm not the receiver here. I'm the person that's doing it.
Yeah. No. And for me also, I think one of the things I love working about with kids is that kids are one of the most like honest audiences that you'll get in terms of like, if something's not clicking with them, like they will let you know, like one way or the other. But also when something is clicking with them, like they'll be in it like 100%. So I think I've learned and developed a lot, like even performing for adults, just like working and performing with kids. Like it's really been, it's something I definitely encourage, especially if you're in performing arts, but even in other art mediums, like doing stuff where you have like children for an audience member. Like I think it's a good kind of test, but you also, you develop some skills I think can help you, in your career and in your other creative ventures.
It'd be great. I can almost see now, like just a kid, being honest and like, yo, Mr. Derek, this is whack. Did you do something else? Like, wow, like I didn't expect it to be like this, But recently I had the opportunity to go back to my old high school, and I graduated from there before any of the students that were there were born. So I was just like, yo, I am old. And that's how I was feeling. And I was like, how am I going to relate? And it's doing something off the cuff, and you're really just kind of speaking to the students and trying to be on that same level, and not talking like, hey man, let me rap with you for a minute, turn the hat backwards, turn the chair backwards. I'm not doing any of that, but really trying to relate and trying to, and looking at the ages. These are like teenagers, I would imagine, looking at the audience, right? Like, you may go back to, for what you're doing with maybe the story times, maybe the music times, and that engagement there of, what was I doing when I was their age? That's the way that I was thinking of when I was there. I was like, when I was like 16 or 17, I didn't want some old person, 37, sitting there like, hey man, here's the thing, brothers and sisters. I don't nobody wants that. But you want something that's engaging. And I think what I noticed for that particular audience was being able to speak to them and relate to them. And I couldn't tell until the very end, when a bunch of kids came up, was like, yo, can I get your card? I want to listen to your podcast. I think this is interesting. I want to learn more about what you do. And I was like, oh, it clicked. I was like, I thought I was bombing up there like a comedian. I thought I was just floundering. So since we're in this kind of realm of kids and youth and things of that nature, so I've read that you've been performing in community theater since you were 14. Is that true? And how was that experience starting out?
Yeah, so I've been in a production or show like at least once every year since I've been 14. And it's been an interesting journey for me, and I think it's another reason why I'm so passionate about it, because I there's definitely those people who grew up in theater, like maybe their parents were in theater, or, they were just like a theater kid. And I was definitely, like, looking back on it, I definitely had a theatrical side, but I didn't get into theater until pretty much I was 14. I was lucky that my parents were always really, both were able to financially, but also were really passionate about just exposing my brother and I to just all different types of like stuff. Like they were like, we're gonna let you can pick whatever you want to do. Like if you find a hobby, we'll do it, but you're gonna do a little bit of sports, you're gonna do a little bit of art, you're gonna do a little bit of everything. So you get, that good exposure. And so, we would go to, plays, and I would see stuff, but it just wasn't really clicking with me. I was like, oh, it's okay, it's cool, but like I'm not really getting it. And I think one of the first things that really like got to me was actually like the like Brandy Whitney Houston Cinderella, because I'm sure you remember like that was like an event, like I was like a big deal like when that came out. And so of course I was gonna watch it because my parents were like, we're watching this, but that was like the first time. But I think it helped because for the most part, all the main people were in it were people who I recognized from other stuff. And I think somewhere in my head before I had gotten this idea that, only certain people like act and perform, like it's not accessible for everybody. And then also when you're, Black, you're not always seeing great representation or very limited representation. I think you get that too. But then I think being able to see that, I was like, I know these people and they're singing. They don't usually sing. Like, maybe other people can do that. So I think that kind of started to plant the seed. And then when I was in middle school, I went to Baltimore Lutheran. Now it's called Concordia Prep, but Baltimore Lutheran, like middle and high school. And so they were doing the musical Godspell. It was like the first musical they had done in like years. And so there were several people who were in the class, who were in the show. And then my French teacher, named Mrs. Strong, she was like the box office person. So they would be constantly talking about, the show and things that happen at rehearsals. And I'd be listening and I was like, that sounds like fun and cool. And so they were, of course, like being teenagers, like, opening night's the only night you should go. That's the best night. That's the best performance. If you're not an opening night, that's a wrap. That's it for you. So I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll go to opening night and check it out because it sounds good. And then, of course, it sold out. So I was like, initially, I was like, well, that's it. I'm just not going to go. That's fine. And so, but then like, Mrs. Strong was like, hey, like I found an extra ticket, like, I'll give it to you if you want it. Like, you don't even have to pay for it. I'll give it to you because I know you really wanted to go. It was like, well, now I can't, it's too late. Like, I can't get a ride down there. She's like, well, I'll pick you up. So she like went to my house, like drove me there and drove me back. Yeah. And I was just like mesmerized, like transfixed. And I think part of that was also just, I think that was a great, teaching moment too. Like, I think, and that might've been where like the education theater kind of fused. Like, she didn't have to do all that. She like went out of her way to like, get me there and expose me to that. And I think between that and seeing my classmates in it, like I remember driving back home, like taking me back home. I was like, you know what? I think I want to try theater. I want to audition next year. It's like, you should. And I went and I did like a one act and the rest is history. So it's, it really was, being exposed, getting that opportunity to really try this and just being fortunate to, I think I love just the Maryland theater community, especially even the Baltimore ones, because there's just so many talented people. And I think I saw an article once, they were talking about how the Baltimore art scene is one of those like sleeper cities, because I think when people think about like cities or urban areas that have a lot of art, I think culturally we think of like the New York Cities, the San Franciscos, and nothing on them because those places are incredible. But like it's like no, there's really good, really great stuff.
No, it's like, concentrated here.
It's very concentrated, and there's so many different. Not even niche, but there's just so many different types of theater that you can look for if you're interested in it. I mean, I know the pandemic unfortunately kind of hit some of that stuff, but I'm happy that a lot of them are starting to kind of get their feet back. But I think I'm very happy and fortunate that I've been able to work with so many different like theaters and companies that do so many different stuff and learn from so many different people. So yeah, that's kind of my theater journey. It makes me think, like having this conversation to give me this flashback of just when you have someone in a role that can really ensure that you're exposed and make
make that situation as easy and almost as seamless for you as possible, because it's not about the picking you up, the dropping you off, you getting the access to it as much as you being around it. You more so it's about you getting access to it. And I think of I had this teacher in high school who was an English teacher, and you're not really, I did a little bit of everything. I thought I was going to be a comic book artist, right? And I was kind of adept at English, which I'm not on this podcast for some reason today, but I was adept at English, and I liked some of the stories. And I wasn't a big reader, but I definitely could remember things, remember certain things, and then I would BS it sometimes. It's like, that didn't happen. You just kind of filled in some nonsense to try to tell a story to make it seem like you were good, right? So we did this kind of oral tradition thing, and we had a dramatic reading of one of the classics. I think it was Beowulf, right?
Okay.
And just the one of the teachers that was there, it was so corny and so geeky, but it was just great. I was transfixed, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And one of his colleagues was my teacher, and she wanted to make sure that, one, I went to that, and two, any of the little things that I was interested in, I was writing raps at the time, because, every person that was of that age was writing raps at that time for some reason. And I did a rap song in character as Macbeth, and she played it for the whole class because I was trying to impress a girl.
Okay.
And so my nerdiness was coming with my blackness, and it just blew up. It was wild, but it was kind of this thing of being attached to this notion of having someone's attention, being able to spin a yarn, and it doesn't matter what the yarn might be. I'm a black kid talking about something that is just super old, super European, or what have you, and it's just like, you have no business talking about this or caring about this, but you're having a great time doing it, and you somehow I made the DJ Clue stuff for a Macbeth song.
Yeah.
So those things don't go together. So yeah, thank you for helping me go back in that memory. That was really cool.
Oh yeah,
memory.
No problem. No, I've got my own kind of rap, rap stuff that I've written before. So I was like, I know that, I feel that.
Yeah. So I got two more real questions, and then some rapid fire ones for you.
All right, sounds good.
So creatively, right? I think let me flip it. How do you define creativity, and why is it important for you to work in that kind of capacity? And I think you've touched on it, but to be clear in it, how do you define it, and why is it important for you on a day-to-day to work in a role, whether it be during your acting, whether it be at Port Discovery, to do something that is enriching you and filling that cup creatively?
So I think for me, creativity is this is a very simple definition, but creativity is finding ways to make things work for you with what you have. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just an incredible life skill that anybody needs. I think sometimes people think creativity is just restricted to just the arts, and then of course creativity is very important for the arts and crucial for it, but creativity is for anything, any field, anything that you do. It's being able to, if you're in a situation, think about it, take the tools, the materials you have around you, and really make it work. I mean, I always joke that if that's the one ability that I've definitely gotten working, definitely both in theater, but also at Port Discovery, that shoestring, make some stuff work, make it work somehow, and you do. And I think that in our current world, and really in any era, but especially now, the world is always there's so much that everybody's dealing with, and people have different needs and different struggles and all that. Not everybody has the resources and access they need, and being able to use creativity in whatever way you choose and whatever way is best for you, in terms of problem solving and communication and collaboration and and, you know, just thinking outside the box, like, you know, is there another way to do this? I mean, I think, you know, that's one of those things that I'm really passionate about, both for helping to teach kids, but also for myself, is kind of having a growth mindset. I think, you know, when we get older, we definitely get fixed on our ways, and we're like, well, it's just like this, and that's just how it's going to be, and I'm not going to change. I think just constantly just remembering, like, no, you can keep learning, you know, you can keep expanding, you can change your perspectives on things. And I think that's for me is what creativity is. And I think that's why it's so important. And that's why I want to pass that on to the next generation. I remember one thing that I remember from, you know, my training here at work that's always stuck with me is that, you know, kids, people who are kids now are going to grow up with technology that we right now can't even fathom with. You know, it's kind of like, you forget back, you know, just how much even the internet has like changed so much from like when I was a kid to like now. It's like I can't even fathom it. And so, you know, I know there's talking about, you know, kids need to have like these creativity skills as part of why, you know, with STEM there, you know, there's definitely those people that add the arts for STEAM. So I think that's a really important. And I think also kind of going back to that, you know, with my experience, even with theater, getting into when I was younger, is that, you know, creativity is something that everybody can access. Like, yes, you have to develop it like any kind of skill, any type of muscle, but it's not like only one type of person or one type of kid or one type of person from this environment or grew up in this class or this stuff. Like, it's for everybody. Like, anybody can be creative, anybody can use it, you know, for work or even for leisure. Like, and I think that's one thing that I would hope to continue to pass on with whatever organization I'm working with is that to both kids and adults too.
Well, actually, you were very productive there. You knocked out both of the questions, actually. So good on you on that one. And I agree with that. And I think, you know, one of the things that I do in my day job, which is not a creative day job per se, you know, I leverage this notion that I'm a creative problem solver. It's like you're figuring out ways to do more with less. As you were touching on, you're figuring out things as a podcaster, what I'm doing, and, you know, the non-day job, and how am I going to get this edited? How am I going to get sound? All right, let's figure out this. How can I get this interview and balancing time? You're doing all of these skills, and it's something that doesn't always show up on a resume. It doesn't always show up on paper, but it's innate. It's there. And that's something that, you know, because I've been doing this for as long as I have, that if I go to an interview or if I go for funding or something along those lines, I can rest on a really strong skill set that is based in creativity and is based in that problem solving, and just it gives you a lot of confidence. It gives you confidence when you failed at some stuff and it's like, how am I going to creatively get out of this one? I'm going to get out of this bucket of syrup.
And it's infectious. I think like creativity is infectious. Like once people see other people engage in creativity in that environment, I think it starts to catch on. I mean, the other day, because we'll do once, like the first Wednesday of the month, we have like the $2 like community days just to, you know, provide access for other families so they can come visit the museum. And so I was myself and some of the people on my like education programming team, we were in our art studio, and we had done this a couple years ago, but we had you know, we were making just kind of cardboard, like pop culture kind of items. And we have like a really talented artist named Kenneth Clemens, he designed all these like incredible stuff just made out of cardboard. And it was just like, just having some of that stuff up and just having us, the adults, just kind of making stuff. And I'm good at like drawing stuff, but I'm not good at like actually like constructing like three-dimensional things. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to try my best. But there were kids who were like, I want to make like this. And it was really great seeing like, just again, also just the adults working with their kids. And it's not, you know, making sure, you can come and play with your kids too. Like, it's not just like sit them down and, you know, put the iPad in front of them and just go. Like, you can bond that way. You're learning from each other doing that. So I think that's another thing that I love about that.
I think part of it is creativity as well as, being poor growing up. I mean, I got some of the most mismatched Legos and Transformers that didn't have all the legs, and it's like,
Yeah.
yo, have fun with this. It's like these Legos are different colors. Some of those are blocks, and you have fun with it. You figure it out. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good spot for us to wrap on the real questions. Let's hit these rapid fire ones really quickly. And whatever comes to your mind immediately, don't ruminate on it too much, because then it's just like, let me curate my answer.
All right.
I'm gonna start off with an easier one. For you, what's the best thing about storytelling?
Being able to experience somebody else's perspective and kind of walk in somebody else's shoes. I think storytelling is one of those great kind of quick shots of developing empathy, which I think we all need.
Agreed. What hashtag best describes you?
Hashtag started from the bottom. Now I'm here.
That's a long hashtag. I appreciate it. That's a long
one, but yeah, I feel like that's accurate.
Hit that character limit.
Yeah.
What are 3 words that describe you as a performer?
Expressive, observant, and wacky.
Okay.
Yeah. I think those are the ones that came to mind.
I immediately thought of a cartoon character. It's just like
Yep. Yeah.
What do you consider your greatest achievement thus far?
I think rapid fire. I think just being able to I wrote like a musical for a children's theater that I did a lot of shows with. And I never, I can't even really read music very well, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I was reading the books on how to write it while I was trying to write it, but it was just another example of just like somebody giving me a shot, and I was really proud of just the work that I was able to do and produce. And it's definitely something that in my spare time I'm trying to learn more and develop, just kind of writing things again.
That's great. This last one might actually attach to that one. Name a memorable production you were a part of. Just one that sticks out. It could be like, this was a trouble production, or I was wild in it. Someone got set on fire. I don't know. Name a memorable production for you.
The first one that came to mind was You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and I did that one in high school, and that was the first musical I was in, and I at that point I wasn't really confident in my singing voice, and I was Schroeder, but I was but it was really great, and I had a lot of people laughing just with my facial expressions, just with my interaction with Lucy. And I think that was one of the first ones that solidified that, because before I was just doing theater really for fun. It was for me, it was a social thing. It was bonding with people. It was a way for me kind of express kind of myself emotionally. But that was one of the first moments where it's I could actually I'm actually kind of good at this. I might be able to actually do this. I'm not necessarily professionally, but there might be something deeper here. So I think that's the one that kind of immediately stood to mind.
So there you have it. I want to thank you for going through the rapid fire, indulging me there, and answering the questions. This has been a lot of fun, and I want to invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks where to check you out online, the social media for yourself, for Port Discovery. And again, thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me, Rob. Visit www.portdiscovery.org. We're located in Baltimore's Inner Harbor, right off of President Lombard Street. Right now, we're currently open Wednesday, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We've got 2 play sessions a day, but starting in the middle of June, June 20th, we'll be open 7 days a week for our summer session. And we're actually going to be in a couple of weeks getting a Eric Carle visiting exhibit. So if you got young kids that love, the very hungry caterpillar and the very busy spider, it's a really cool exhibit that's coming down. And side plug, I'm also in a production of A Chorus Line at Dundalk Community Theater, which opens next weekend and the following weekend. So if you get a chance, really amazingly talented Baltimore, Maryland talent, legitimately everybody in this show is a triple threat. So if you get a chance, check it out. And honestly, check out all the theater productions. Stuff is really opening up. I would love, instead of a restaurant week, a theater week, just here's all these shows, get discount, just go. But yeah, definitely check out all of the incredible local theater that's around Baltimore and around Maryland, because there's a lot of crazily passionate and talented men, women, and people of all genders just doing their thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I'll wrap there for Derek Cooper of the Port Discovery Children's Museum. I am Rob Lee, saying there is art, theater, performance in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.